will never coexist peacefully. It's a love-hate situation. It can exist between two best friends or two sisters, what have you, and a mother and a daughter, for that matter. I mean, after all, when somebody else has your husband's child, you can't very well say, "Welcome into our home, dear," and bring the baby. After all, she was my hairdresser and my manicurist, who became my paid companion to make sure I didn't drink. And she loved Mrs. Chancellor, she really did, once she got into my home. But then my husband, being, typically male and well and alive, was teaching her how to read and write and read good books and think about good things. And then he taught her about other things, and that's how it all started. She was very grateful to her as a companion, but then she had this child by my husband, Philip Chancellor III. And we were bitter enemies. In fact, it was such fun. No matter what one said to the other, you would find a deeper meaning behind it to hate one another, until it actually came to blows at the church one day. And of course, the audience loved and waited for the moment that these two women would just take their fist and drive it through the other one's face. That's how deep we took this "I cannot stand you" relationship. And what is so amazing when one of our writers who played a part on the show tells a story of how I went and gave a baby away and what have you, all that sort of thing, when I was separated from my husband and had a child without his sperm. And in a drunken moment, I went and did this, and so on and so forth, what have you. So the babies were exchanged and that sort of thing. And Liz Foster, Jill Foster's mother, who worked for one of my factories, was dying and called everyone in and tells the story of how, "Jill, we adopted you, but it's Mrs. Chancellor is your baby, is your mother," which was a great shock to me, too. Big shock to Katherine. That thing is my daughter. And of course, you've had some episodes of where the audience has just waited for us to kill one another, and they still do. But I accepted her as my child, and now, and you try and say, "That's my child, I will love her as much as I can," and did. But there's always that resentment, that fight, that tug. And now I found out she is not my daughter, and I had a stroke when they said she was my daughter. I did. Katherine had a stroke. We didn't go into strokes too much. I said, "Don't go there, because even the doctors haven't figured this out too well." It was a mini stroke. And but it was explained. It was very well explained, and lived through on the show. And people write and say, "Yeah, my mother or my aunt or my sister, blah, 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 had that, or my uncle." When I came to the conclusion that without a Jill in your life, you take somebody who's such a part of your life, whether you dislike intensely or you love intensely, you take that person out of your life, there's a hole in your life. And so I have retained Jill and brought her back into the company of where there's sort of a love that exists now, and I consider her my daughter without her being my daughter. But I want the best for her, but not the ultimate best for her. I will always be in control. There will always be that little line. So now she's out on the hunt for my real daughter, of which a hoax has been played on her, and my real daughter is a jolt in the head, is a total jolt in the head. Jojo, a bounty hunter. Which brings back the comedy, and of course, brings back the comedy with Jill and Katherine. And of course, we know I know it's I know because I've read the scripts, but we know that Jojo, there's no way she can be my daughter, we hope. But we were Jess Walton, who plays Jill, is incredible. We were voted super couple for years. We were the super couple. And it was, we'd have to sit and think of things to do to keep the audience. And that's the one thing about daytime television. You have that option of today, how do I play that? How do I tease my audience? How do I tease you today? You think I'm going to do it this way, but I'm not. I'm going to do it another way. And that's one thing you get to do. You sort of get to do that like you do on stage. You get to tease a little bit. And that's what brought Bill Bell's him around to say, build this up between the two. It was fun for them to write for. Katherine was going for her physical, for breast cancer, a mammogram she was going for, and they found the lump with Katherine, which we found benign. But what brought them together is the first person she called was Jill, and she said, I don't know what you do, if I have to tie you down, drag you in, you are going to have the examination. I'm not going to let you die for nothing, and so on and so forth. And again, that brought a lot of people. In fact, I went out on certain events where I would encourage you, it would be at hospitals or various other clinics, where they'd be holding mammograms, free mammograms, for women to come in and have their mammograms taken. I've done a lot, come to think about it. See, you forget that because you always think you're play pretending. And sometimes you really aren't. There were two factors with Jill and with Katherine. In fact, it came to the point that they had to send us both away for 2 weeks because people lined, and I think you were there when this happened, of contingents came out, and they were lining around CBS, Katherine's people and Jill's people, and I mean, they had fights. They broke out in fights, and these people, some came from the East Coast to protest it, that who killed Philip, and I'm responsible, and other ones saying to Jill, don't leave her alone, you deserve it, you slut, and blah, 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 blah. Really crazy stuff. But to humanize Katherine, Katherine was always human. When she was dehumanized was when she drank. That's dehumanizing Katherine. Katherine is a woman who, every time she'd get up off her knees, somebody had hit her on the head again with something that was devastating to her. And actually, when I got to humanize her again, it was through her sobriety. And I wanted to do that to make people understand why she went where she went, why she did what she did, that it isn't just her, and humanizing her, no matter how rich you are, it can happen to anybody. To show people who didn't have her jillions of dollars, take a look at her. She's got everything you'd think you'd live for. She has your same problem. And that's been my involvement and my friendship with my audience for 36 years.